Hello and happy holidays. This is Sean Shaw and welcome to Vanguards of Democracy. To help celebrate the gift-giving season, we've invited two of the most selfless, compassionate civil servants that I know to visit our studio today. Florida House of Representatives State Representative Fentrice Driskell will be joining us to assess Florida's political agenda and the factors that have caused growing distrust in the government in recent years. But first, I'm here with my county commissioner on the Hillsborough County Commission, Gwen Myers, to look at the ways we can challenge our government to do more for us in transportation, affordable housing, healthcare, and more. Stay tuned because that segment starts right now. Good afternoon and welcome back to Vanguards of Democracy with Sean Shaw. And I'm here with my good friend, Hillsborough County Commissioner Gwen Myers. And Commissioner Myers is someone, the rare times that I am now out in the community, I don't do it as much as I used to, but certainly when I'm out there, I see you all the time. You are one of the commissioners that is always out in the community, always talking to constituents, always having events so people can learn more, and that does not go unnoticed. So we appreciate that. And I live in your district, and so I'm certainly happy that my commissioner is such a hard worker. I want you to kind of tell the audience a little bit, if you will, because I think it has made you a good commissioner, kind of where you came from to get to elected office, because I think people's path to elected office reveals a lot of times what kind of elected official they're going to be. And I think in your case, it kind of foreshadowed that you would be exactly this type of person who listened and who was careful and who was so immersed in the community.
And thank you. Thank you for the question. But first, let me say thank you for having me on the show.
Of course.
I certainly appreciate being here. So I want to talk about my 25 years working for Hillsborough County government. Joined Hillsborough County in 1988. And that allowed me the opportunity to work in housing and community development, health and social services. And a long story short, I didn't know I was going to run for a county seat. But in reality, it prepared me for this seat and having the understanding of working and listening to citizens and hearing their complaints, their concerns. How do you address those issues? So being a public servant my entire career, it's all about the people. That's what I ran on, and I like to build relationships and talk with them and meet with them. How can county government help you?
And that's what I wanted to bring out. You worked in the same type of government that you ran to represent. And that's why you understand it. And that's why probably staff and lobbyists and other people can't get stuff over on you because you actually know it. And I bet that's frustrating to some people, but those of us that live in your district appreciate that. And I want to talk about the district a little bit. You represent, obviously, the right now majority-minority district in the Hillsborough County Commission. And it's important that people understand that commission, your district is different than others. Yes. When you represent seats like that, the concerns are different. Your concerns are, bus routes and some infrastructure and affordable housing and things like that. Other people don't have those concerns. They have different concerns. I want you to tell me what are the issues that keep you up at night when you're trying to make sure that District 3, their needs are addressed and their concerns are addressed?
Very good question. One was just this past weekend. A family of 6, displaced, moving Sunday night, got the call on Saturday. Commissioner, I need help. It doesn't stop. So you find a way. You call staff on the weekend and you says, hey, I have an emergency situation. Let's help this family. When it comes to buses, making sure that they can catch the bus, in particular the disabled. Sometimes we get complaints that they missed the bus or the ramp won't go down. We talk with heart. Let's send another bus, send the Heartline to pick them up. And so those are the kind of issues besides the affordable housing and the rent that is increasing like crazy. I received that call over the weekend. I need help. Rent going from $800 and an additional $500 for a senior citizen. That is $1,300. It's too much.
In the middle of a pandemic.
Yes, too much. But hopefully, with the affordable housing, we hope to put a sanction in place that we can stabilize that increase of rent because it's ridiculous. Not only is it here in Hillsborough County, but it's throughout the nation.
I read an article that said Tampa was the #1 city in the country for inflation. And so it's not only that, but Florida in general is becoming an expensive state to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And so we got to worry about all that. But affordable housing is one that I want to talk about because it dovetails with this gentrification issue that we're all talking about in certain places. And it also relates to redistricting,
Mm-hmm.
right? The populations of this city and county are changing. Black people used to live here, now they're living here. Why? That is a question we also need to ask, or why certain families have to move and why they can't afford to stay where they are, and why you see brand new $350,000 houses in the middle of a neighborhood, and then the next year you go, the whole neighborhood is filled with those $350,000 houses. What can we do? Because gentrification and progress knock up against each other, right? We want progress. We want good things. We want a tax base to pay for things. We want progress, but we also don't want it at the expense of some of our historic neighborhoods. And we also surely don't want everyone to have to move to Riverview and Brandon because we've built up the city of Tampa so much. What are we doing, or what can the county do to make sure that we have progress, but we also have affordable housing? We also have enough money for bus routes, enough money for neighborhood centers, and all of that. That's a big question, but there's a tension there. What are we doing to kind of address that?
Well, one of the things the county has set aside $10 million, and that was set aside in 2019 for affordable housing, to build affordable housing. We're not building them rapid enough, but we are building affordable housing to help people. People will say, well, I can't get on the wait list. We have no waiting list. That's Tampa Housing Authority. But I said, work with our developers. You find a lot of developers don't want to build affordable housing. They want the market rate. So you're trying to get those to come in to say, I will build affordable housing, like a Sean Wilson. I have to give him credit. He's working out of the USF area building affordable housing. And so we know that segment, the underserved, will get a chance to live in those communities. Now, if it's where I want to live, no, but it's where I could afford to live. And that's what we have to look at now, because with the prices of the rent and with this pandemic, I mean, you have landlords just forcing people out for no reason. It's sad to say that, but with the pandemic, it's just upset everything here in Hillsborough County and throughout the nation.
And even before the pandemic, the Seminole Heights, North Hyde Park, West Tampa, those kind of areas, the population, the shifts are so quick. And I mean, 2-3 years,
Yes.
you will see a street right off Main Street in West Tampa. The next time you go, it's blank. And the next time you go after that, it's filled with expensive residential homes. And again, there's progress, but then there's gentrification, and we got to strike the right balance. So let me talk some about redistricting, because it impacts this. You have as I said before, the unique district that is majority minority, but your district is also, I think, more than others, subject to this displacement and people moving in and out.
Mm-hmm.
And so it may change the nature of your district. And we certainly don't want to have a situation where there's no black people on the Hillsborough County Commission, or there's no black people on the Tampa City Council, or there's no historic black seat either. I want to see black people have the seats that aren't just the black seats, but we got to start with where we are, and that is your seat. I want to talk, the redistricting process got a little tense, let's say that, and we're now past it, and we voted on a map. What's next? I know you've got a meeting coming up that you might want to talk about some, but what's next in the process?
And that's what's next, because the community has to come together. We're split,
Yes.
okay? I want to repeat it again. The black community is split. We need to come together, have our agenda, work on issues that benefits us, also talk to other elected officials if they're going to support us. There have been too many years that we have supported that those that do not look like the two of us, their agenda. And if we go to them and ask them, hey, can you help with affordable housing? We need social services. They don't have time to come out.
Until re-election.
Re-election, okay? Do you really want to keep having someone represent you? And let's be honest, Sean, they're our friends, okay? But you got to, when you become elected, you got to cut your friend loose if they're not accountable and producing. I ran on a theme it's about the people. And to me, I'm retired, and I give all my attention to the people, because they're the ones coming in asking for services. I don't want anyone to say come election time, In 2022, oh, here come Commissioner
No,
Myers.
they won't say that about you. You
A
are exactly
re-election.
correct.
Okay?
Yeah.
So that is important. So this meeting that I've scheduled for January the 12th, it's going to be at Greater Bethel Missionary Baptist Church. The community has to come together, and we have to figure. I won't say we're going to be the Stacey Abrams, but we're going to be pretty close to get there. How do we get more blacks elected? Okay, that's going to be real important. You know, we go around and we say, okay, well, who we want to push? The same as I'm hearing now. They want someone to run against me. That's fine. I've already filed. Just in case they don't know, I filed on January 2nd of this year.
And your kickoff was yesterday.
Kickoff was yesterday.
Uh-huh.
Very nice kickoff, very well supportive. But the main thing, the community has to come together to deal with issues. And if you don't like one another, that's okay. But we're going to deal with issues. It's not going to be personal, but you got to come together and deal with issues. How do we make Hillsborough County and the city of Tampa better that represents us?
And it's not personal. It took me a while to learn this lesson. I was on the radio and I said this, just because someone disagrees with you politically doesn't mean that they personally don't like you. And I think we need to understand that, and we need to be okay with that. Mm-hmm. People can disagree with you politically. But I also, and I'm talking to the black community right now, I'll be very specific. We are harder on electeds that look like us than electeds that don't.
Absolutely.
And that is something we have got to figure out. I want you to be hard on everybody. I want everybody to get the same energy. I think everybody should be held accountable, and particularly a lot of black communities around the country have looked the same for the last 20, 30 years. Mm-hmm. And someone should be held accountable for that. But you got to have the same energy. You can't be cussing you out and then somebody else come and they get a free pass.
Well, you hit a very point. And this is one of the things a lot of people come to me about, the needs in East Tampa, the needs in West Tampa. I say, wait, hold it. I want District 3 to prosper. When the district prosper, we all win because we all have issues in our communities. Right now, we're doing a $10 million project out in Progress Village. We don't hear that East Tampa talking about it or West Tampa, but the ones living in Progress Village, they're happy about it. I held a meeting out there, brought and took county staff with me. We've been talking about flooding out there for over 30 years. It's time to get it fixed.
Right.
And we're getting ready to get it fixed.
No, we haven't. Listen, you run for office, you tell people what kind of elected official you're going to be and what you're going to do. You try to do it, and when you run for election, you give yourself a report card, and you've got a very good report card to give the people, and that's why your kickoff was well attended, and that's why you're going to win. It's because of this. It's not by accident. It's the people want to see it, and even if they don't disagree with you, they can't say, "Well, Gwen don't come around." They can't say that. And that's important. I want to talk about the Rays a little bit now. There is some chatter that the Rays are thinking about maybe coming to Tampa, and that a likely stadium location would be in Ybor City somewhere. To the extent you can, what do you think about the Rays coming to Tampa? What do you think about the money that it would take to probably go towards a stadium? Certainly, what do you think a Rays stadium's going to do for people in your district?
I'm glad you asked that question.
We didn't even prep this, but I knew.
Well, the Rays coming to District 3 if they decide to come. And one of the things I just said, I want District 3 to prosper. I have to sit down and have a conversation with the Rays before they decide, oh, let's ask the county for all this money. Okay? Because when it comes to jobs, I'm not looking for District 3 to just only take tickets at the door coming in. You got to have management, upper level positions, okay? And so those are the things you talk about with the Rays. Economic opportunities for if you want to come here to Hillsborough County.
Who's going to build it?
That's it.
Who's going to be, what contracts are going to go to build all this?
We're going to make sure that the minorities have their fair share. So you want to come to District 3? Love to have the conversation.
Yeah.
Because it's no longer business as usual.
No, I agree. And I feel the exact same
No
way.
longer.
I feel oftentimes these things come and we have all these.
No minority participation.
The chamber loves it. We come out, we have ribbon cuttings, and, black people are exactly what you're saying, taking tickets at the door and parking your car.
That's it.
And we're not going to stand for that here. I appreciate you saying that.
No.
I want you to talk about maybe some of the money items that you're the most proud of, kind of the money that you've gotten to good people doing good things in the district, and because I know you talked about it a little bit this weekend when I saw you, but talk about some of the good money that's being dispersed in the community to try to help.
Okay, one I would say the senseless gun violence. And it's sad to say that we had to invest $200,000 to Safe and Sound so that we can come up with an educational program to help our community understand you don't have to walk packing with a gun. You look at me the wrong way, you want to kill me. Okay. And so I'm working with the school district, City of Tampa Park and Recreation, as well as Hillsborough County Park. And we have a team so we can begin to educate those from Head Start all the way to high school why you do not need a gun. And once we can get that educational component in place and in everyone's head, the students and the family, I think we can begin this senseless killing. That's number one. My sorority, Gamma Theta Omega Chapter of Alpha Kappa Alpha sorority. I got to put the plug in there.
No, listen, you better, because we have a lot of Greek people come on here.
The pink and green.
You better do it.
We invest $100,000 into that for a program of service. Kappa Alpha Psi is coming here in 2023, $50,000 for them.
Now, we are coming in 2024, so.
Well, I'm still elected. I got you
covered. You're going to be elected because we're going to come to you, but go ahead.
Okay, so then we have the Progress Village Community Center, Emmanuel Johnson, Kinley Park. We don't have a splash pad for our kids. Okay, everybody has to travel all the way downtown, put in funding for splash pads at the parks. And not only that, cover, so they have some shade. Dress for Success, $50,000. So, you just come up with, I think I had more money than all the other commissioners, being a new commissioner, but understanding government.
Right.
And the need of my community.
I was going to say that, the need.
The need. Matter of fact, just 2 weeks ago, we added another $5 million just to deal with infrastructure, roads in my district. And so I'm real pleased that I pay attention to my district. I ride throughout the weekends to see what's going on in my district, in particular when there are bad roads or whatever. I let staff know. And this is what you have to be about. You have to communicate with staff, work with the county administrator to get the things you want done in your district. So with that being said, I want to talk about one of the things that is going to be coming up next year before we get to the transportation tax. In Hillsborough County, it's been a long time, and I'm pretty sure you remember Ike Tribble. We had an African-American museum.
Mm-hmm. Good. I was just going to ask you about that.
And I've asked the county, and they have approved the plan for an African-American art museum to be located in Cultural Center, to be located at 2103 North Rome Avenue. That is our West Tampa Resource Center now. But one of the things that the county owned, they had to ask that. So I went out and took a tour of all the county properties to try to see where we can build the site for a museum. Well, when you own 7 acres, that was half of it there. Now you don't have to go out and try to raise $10 to $12 million to buy the land. The county owned the land. And so that's your greatest asset right there. And so that's the place we're going to house an African-American museum and cultural center is on that site.
And how are you going to go out in the community and try to raise money from businesses and individuals to help?
Absolutely.
With that? Okay.
And not only just raise money, but I'm going to showcase the rendering to get the community input, what they would like, some of the things they would like to see in the museum. Because when you have buy-in from the community, it helps. It's not just always Commissioner Myers' way or whatever. I believe in having that community engagement with people to say, hey, this is going to be in your community. What are some of the things you would like to see in here? So we can do art, we can do STEM, have something outside where we can have jazz outside. So we're looking at laying this out. We're looking at a 60,000 square foot building.
No, I love it. I love it.
I'm down
to help with all that. This is the last thing that I ask before we get to the New Year's resolution. We're going to ask you if you have one. So be thinking about that. Transportation, you mentioned it, and really quickly talk about if there is going to be a tax and what that might look like, and what's the next step on paying for some of these infrastructure projects. I was lucky enough to be on the IOC commission when it existed, and the plans and the money that we were approving and the things we were going to do was massive, and now it's gone. And it's just shocking. I mean, it was bus routes, it was roads, it was intersections, it was just everything. And now there's nothing to replace it. What are we going to do?
Well, it's still there. It's under
it's
offer,
there, right.
offer transportation, AFT. And the board was just briefed this past Wednesday with our counselor, Zimmerman, on giving us an update because, we collected over almost $1 billion and it's sitting there. But hopefully on January 26th, I believe that is the correct date, they asked for a round table of judges and whomever to come and discuss this and see how we're going to divvy up the money. Well, last year when the Supreme Court, early this year, I should say, in February, when the Supreme Court did not rule in AFT favor, I brought it back to the board that for a timeline so that we would be on next year's ballot, the 1% sales tax. The 1% sales tax is needed if we're going to do any infrastructure, when we're talking about jobs, the buses and all. Now, what the allocation is going to be, we have not decided that yet as the Board of County Commissioners or work with staff yet. But it's important that we understand that we need the tax, the 1% sales tax. We voted 57% in 2018. We really need this to improve our roads.
Traffic's only gotten worse since 2018. The transportation needs have only gotten worse.
Let me tell you, Saturday night, I was coming through downtown.
Oh, Lord, me too. I would have paid the tax right then for somebody else.
It was a nightmare, stuck right by the Strass, the parking center for the city of Tampa, and all. I'm like, what is going on? I was so thankful that the Kennedy King was at the convention center.
Mm-hmm. I Ubered because someone told me the traffic was so bad.
It was really, it took me 45 minutes just to try to get home. And so that's why I want the community to understand. Sometimes we say, well, I'm not going to benefit from it. I'm not going to pay it. Well, let me just make it real simple. Every time I get out my car, if I go get gas, if I go to Publix, it's always a penny laying on there. So I started picking them up. Usually I wouldn't pick them up. Now I'm picking them up because I'm saying, okay, somebody dropped their penny. Here's a penny for our sales tax. And so this is how you get it passed. So when we talk about jobs who are going to benefit, this is one of the things that I've been pushing in the county to make sure that minorities have the opportunity to get jobs. And also the sales tax is going to be real critical to push come January. I've already asked the county administrator for them to come back at the January 12th meeting with our scheduled 4 meetings that we're going to have out in the community.
I always, and I was lucky enough to be the chair of that commission, and I always asked every presenter, tell me how this is going to help the black community. Like, I don't want all the money to go to downtown. So obviously some of it needs to go, but so the way it benefits everyone, new streets are literally being built and new intersections are being put in place, safer intersections and road widenings. It was a lot, and bus routes in particular. And it was a lot of money to do a lot of good things for a lot of different communities. This was not one of those things that was just, South Tampa downtown, the only
No, it wasn't a CIT tax, not just for Raymond James Stadium. Yes.
This was for everybody. And I hope that when it's time to talk about how good it is, we can all be on board and sing it, because there are going to be some people who are going to say, well, I don't want to pay no more taxes, and it is what it is, but we got to do this.
Well, the good part about it, everyone comes to Hillsborough County, help pays it. It's just not the residents that are living here. That's one of the things, same thing I tell people when you ask for gas tax. Okay, you out of gas, you stop in Hillsborough County, you get gas, you help us. So it's the same thing when you come in here and you buy anything here in Hillsborough County, you will help pay for our transportation needs.
No, I agree. Well, Commissioner, this has been great as always. I appreciate you making time, and you make time for everybody. I don't know how you do it, but you are everywhere, and don't worry, we all see it. And there's a reason that you're going to have not much competition. It's because we're all going to get behind you and support you because you're everywhere and you're doing everything, and no one can question your intentions. And that's about the best thing you can say about an elected official. So as we're ending now, I just want to ask you to give us a New Year's resolution you might have. And we'll end on that one, because this is going to air right before New Year's.
Okay. I want District 3 to prosper. We have so many needs in District 3, and it has to prosper, and it looks like the other communities in Hillsborough County.
Bingo. There we go. Well, thank you for joining us today. I think we're going to have a headshot for you at some point, so you can sign it. We can put you on the wall there of where everyone else is. But I appreciate you coming, and we're going to have you again because you've been on the radio show a couple times
Yes.
already, and I love to have you. So I appreciate you coming, and we will see you next time.
Thank you so much for having me.
All right, we are here with our next segment, and it is Sean, but I'm here with one of my greatest friends and someone who I think is I know is a superstar here in Florida Democratic politics, and that is Representative Fentrice Driskell, who is going to make history here very soon as the first African-American woman to lead the House caucus. So I want to be respectful of your time, Representative, but I want to thank you for coming on and thank you for all you do and thank you for putting up with all us Democrats. I know it's hard to wrangle us together sometimes, but you're doing as good a job as anyone. I appreciate that. Well, we're working on it. I just saw you at Leadership Blue, and I saw you at some House Victory events, so I've seen you a lot of times here over the past couple of weeks. That's a good thing, but I want to get right into it, and it's something I just asked you about. I may have tweeted in the last hour more than I've tweeted in like the last year because the governor here in Florida, we are particularly good at being bad. And the governor just did a press conference where he essentially wants to pass a bill where parents will have a private cause of action to sue educators if they believe that their kids are being taught critical race theory. Now, there's about 15 things wrong with that sentence I just said, but he just did a press conference about it, and I just want your reaction to creating a private cause of action with attorney's fees. And listen, I'm a trial lawyer, but damn, I didn't know that we were only good for suing about critical race theory and not insurance companies. But what are your thoughts on that?
Thoughts are, I understand that we have to respond, and believe me, I want to respond, but I want to remind everyone out there, don't take your eyes off the ball. This is a strategy from the Republican playbook, and certainly a strategy from this governor. It's not lost on me that he held this press conference the day after a story broke that there was election fraud in 2020, where you had 3 residents of the Villages vote multiple times in an election. There's so much that is happening in this state that are prevalent issues and pressing issues. We cannot let this guy distract us. So what's fascinating to me, right? Governor DeSantis, I don't know why he continues to attack our teachers. I don't know why he continues to divide us. I don't know what it is he's trying to hide, but he must be trying to hide something, because you're probably well aware, Sean, as am I, that CRT is not even taught in Florida schools.
I don't even know what it is. I don't know what it is.
Well, it's not taught in public schools. I don't think he understands what it is. And what is so sad to me is that he continues to try to manipulate our parents and create this boogeyman about something that's not really there. You know, Republicans have been in charge of the Senate, the House, and the governor's mansion in this state since 1998.
And the Department of Education.
If anybody was going to put CRT in our schools, who would have done it? It would have been the Republicans, the very people who are trying to tell us now to take it out. So it doesn't make sense. You know, follow the logic with me. It's already been determined that it's not taught in our schools. It's not permitted to be taught in our schools. It's not there. He's using this as a boogeyman to try to hide, you know, his failure with so many other things, whether it's the COVID-19 response, his lack of leadership there, whether it's the underinvestment in our schools. And I want your listeners to pay attention, because we're coming up on an election year. He's going to try with his budget to sprinkle little, bonuses for teachers and first responders and things like that. But y'all need to remember what he's been doing for this entire time, this past nearly 4 years where he's been in office. He's been auditioning to run for president of the United States and not looking out for Floridians' best interests. He's been dividing us. And it breaks my heart to see all of this divisiveness in our state, because this is not what Florida is really about. And it's a boogeyman that he keeps trying to create to distract from other more pressing issues.
No, I totally agree. But I didn't think you could get a promotion unless you did a good job at the job you have. So this is going to be interesting to see. But I do want to say this. What do you think it says about his opinion of the Florida electorate that he believes allowing teachers to sue if CRT is taught is an issue that's going to advance him electorally? That's what's scary to me, because I'm with you. I think Florida's better than this. I don't think this is where we're at. But clearly, 1, he's trash. But 2, he believes that this is a way to get reelected governor. That's what's most disturbing to me, because I think Florida's better than this.
Yeah, it's an age-old playbook, right? Where you prey on the fears of others, where you try to divide and conquer. And I do believe that our electorate is better than this. I'd like to see us rise above this. And I think then, as a member of the minority party in the House of Representatives, it's my job, the job of myself and my colleagues to make sure that we spread the truth, that we support honest education in our schools, that we support our teachers, that we equip our parents with the real information that they need to make sure that their kids are getting a good education, that we help them understand that this governor just wants to divide us and is just trying to detract from his failed record on investments in our schools and making sure that our public school system is strong.
Representative, I want to ask you about redistricting. That's what's going on here in Florida and at the county level and the school board level here in Hillsborough County. But I want to ask you just what's the timeline on redistricting from a statewide level? Because this, in my opinion, is one of the most important things we got going on right now because of just how important it is on who votes for who.
That's absolutely right, Sean. And in fact, that's where I think that everybody's attention should be on. It should be on redistricting and not these fabricated boogeymen that Governor DeSantis keeps trying to come up with. Because it's going to set the stage for government in our state for the next decade. It's really very important. So legislative session starts on January 11th and it runs through March 11th. So during that 60 days, that's when you'll see the maps for the Florida House, Florida Senate, and Florida's congressional districts finalized, voted upon in the legislature, and then they will go to the governor for his signature at some point. So I would anticipate that we would know what the maps are going to be certainly before March 11th.
Welcome to Florida.
Can I just put in a plug too? Because you're right. We need to pay attention to this. If your listeners want to follow along with what's happening in redistricting, they can do so by visiting FloridaRedistricting.gov. That's FloridaRedistricting.gov. That's the legislature's website for all things redistricting. So they can track the maps. They can see when the meetings are scheduled and the public hearings are scheduled, et cetera, and make sure they stay informed.
Let's try to inject some positivity here into politics. What are your priorities this legislative session going forward? What are you working on a kind of a positive, non-defensive basis? Like, what are we working on to try to get done?
Well, there's a bill I'd love to mention, which is actually bipartisan. I'm carrying it with some colleagues from across the aisle, and it's on social media literacy. And what it basically asks is or requires our school districts to teach information about social media literacy, hoping that students would develop the discernment that they need to understand how to use social media as a tool in a positive way, understand that you can't always trust everything that you read on social media. We know we've seen so much disinformation out there, whether it's about COVID-19 or elections. And if we're not careful, social media stands to erode the very foundations of our democracy. So this gives the school districts the authority to develop social media literacy curriculum and to make that information available online so parents can have access to it as well. So it's a good bipartisan bill that I hope garners a lot of support and maybe might help us to have more positive and constructive discourse in our democracy.
Well, it can't get much worse than it is right now. I'll tell you that. I would ask, what's the caucus priorities? What are the caucus some specific areas that they are going to try to work on under your leadership going forward? You and obviously Representative Vermont Alexander.
Yes, absolutely. So as Florida Democrats, we believe that all Floridians deserve the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And so you can expect policies from us as a caucus that help support that. That includes, as I mentioned, about Floridians being healthy. All Floridians deserve the right and to have access to high quality, affordable health care. That could include a Medicaid expansion if we need it. I know that this is something that the federal government has been working on to get that expansion. But I think just to break it down in terms that people, really care about, it's basically that when you go to the doctors, it costs too much, or rather, sometimes people don't even have the insurance that they need to get the access to the healthcare. So that's something that we want to work on. Under the prosperous prong, property insurance rates are too high right now. So homeowners are really getting the squeeze. And then for those who are trying to rent, it's very difficult to find affordable housing. So that is something as a Democratic caucus that we want to work on. And then with respect to SAFE, there's many different topics that come under there, whether it's looking at marijuana and whether it's time to legalize that. It certainly is time to expunge low-level criminal offenses tied to marijuana. And then we also have some clean water issues there as well. Everybody deserves the right to have access to clean drinking water.
I want to point to a specific issue, and that is a woman's right to choose, because here in Florida, we like to be best at being worst. And the fact that Texas was able to pass that restriction on a woman's right to choose that was so onerous, do you anticipate Florida trying to say, hold my beer and do worse? And if so, how are we going to combat that?
Yeah, we've already tried. There's a piece of legislation that's been introduced by a colleague across the aisle that is trying to impose Texas-style abortion restrictions here in Florida. But I got to tell you, it's a misstep on so many levels. The first of which is, just want to point out the hypocrisy when it comes to vaccines. There's a narrative that's been presented from the right, my body, my choice. But apparently that's true.
Other than women.
Yeah, it stops at ovaries, apparently.
Yeah.
So, again, I believe that all Floridians deserve the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe. And I don't think that the government should be injecting itself into such a personal decision that has to be a decision between a woman, her doctor, and her God. It's also trying to turn neighbors into snitches and snitching on doctors. Just who are we? So we've got that here in Florida right now. It's already been introduced in the legislature. And that, again, is a more real battle that we need everyone to pay attention to and to lend their voices to. And by the way, polling shows that most Americans think that Texas abortion bill goes too far. So I don't think that's something that we want to see here in Florida.
No, I think you're exactly right. These attempts to distract us from the last 25, 30 years of Republican rule, Democrats ain't been in charge for a long time. So the lack of affordable housing, high utility rates, high insurance rates, bad infrastructure, all of that falls on them and not us. And we've got to make sure Floridians understand you give us the keys to the kingdom, that we are going to address some of those things in a responsible way. I think we just we need to do a better job messaging on that. And you are one of the leaders in the party on the messaging and getting that under control. Because if we don't get that under control, everything else we want to do that's good, I think, is going to suffer. So what are we doing without giving away anything? What are we doing to make sure that, damn it, we're on message and we let Floridians know how good it could be if you give us the keys to the kingdom?
Well, the Democratic Party, we always refer to ourselves as the big tent. I think it's a very inclusive tent. And so you have many different perspectives. You may have those who may categorize themselves as more progressive, more liberal leaning, some who are more centrist, some who are blue dogs. I mean, we've got this whole big variety. But what I've started to understand and realize as I talk to members of my party, there's actually not a lot of daylight between the things that like progressives say they want and what moderates say they want. Oftentimes it's not a lot of daylight, right? Like we all want access to affordable quality healthcare. We all want a pathway to prosperity. We all want access to affordable housing. And so what I've uncovered and discovered is that you have to find a framework that certainly is inclusive enough so that everybody feels heard, but also that has values that we're communicating that resonate with voters. So that's kind of where we're at, talking about the freedom to be healthy, prosperous, and safe, because everybody wants that. It's something that we can all agree on. I think sometimes as a party, we get too far into the weeds. We like to explain a lot. If you're explaining, then you probably have already lost that voter. You need to be able to communicate in very simple, straightforward terms. And so that's what we're doing.
I just think sometimes Democrats forget that you got to win before you can start governing. And so I think we can govern our behind off, but we just have this problem when we're running is we like to explain and get in the weeds and tell people what's best for them without listening for them telling us what's best for them. And I think we do a lot of talking sometimes and not a lot of listening, and then wonder what happened and why there's a disconnect between us and some of our coalition partners. I want to and we're getting here near the end. I want to just talk about a little bit about these two cases that happened a while ago, but I want to get your opinion on them. One, you're a lawyer, and two, you're very smart, and three, you're an African-American woman. I want to talk about Rittenhouse and Arbery a little bit. And what were your feelings on those verdicts? I'll just say, although I was disappointed in the Rittenhouse verdict, I wasn't surprised given the dynamics of self-defense law and all that stuff. What were your thoughts coming away from those two trials?
It was really tough, and I'm a lawyer, right? So I can wear the legal hat and I can totally understand where you're coming from with that perspective about, the interplay of self-defense laws. But as a person, as just a Black woman and just speaking very honestly in a very vulnerable way about my emotions, that was a really tough day. It was a really tough verdict. And, you've got this kid who's got a weapon that he wasn't even supposed to have been in possession of, and he's been driven across state lines, and he's looking for trouble and gets in trouble and somehow walks away scot-free. I mean, that was a really tough verdict to stomach on an emotional level. Correct. Sure, I can understand the ins and outs of how that result was reached in our legal system. But when you take that in the broader context of everything that we saw last summer, it was a tough pill to swallow. And then you've got the Ahmaud Arbery verdict. And there it did feel like justice was served. I don't know how, even getting out of my emotions and into more of a legal context, I don't know how the jury could have decided any other way in that case. So while it felt emotionally satisfying, I also do think that the jury followed the law and reached the correct verdict there. It's just bringing us back to all of those emotions from last summer. And I guess what my takeaway would be from it all is when I think about what happened with Rittenhouse and how he went looking for trouble, his victims were white. So there were white folks out there protesting an allyship that Black Lives Matter. And I don't want to miss that part of the narrative, that it takes allyship in order to move the needle forward. And if we are going to actually forge a better future for all Floridians, regardless of their race or their zip code or what they look like or who they love, if we're going to do that even more broadly in the context of America as a whole, as a country, it's going to take diverse coalitions of people working together. So
that's very well said. Race as a motivator for good and bad in this country is just fascinating. We are here at the end. I know you've got to wrap up, but I want to ask you one thing. Give us a New Year's resolution that you got, and whether you're going to keep it or not, we're not going to ask that, but give us one.
The day, but honestly, no. At New Year's, I do like to set, maybe not so much resolutions, but I do like to set intentions. And I think, this past year, 2021 was rough. We hated 2020. We hope that 2021 would be better. I hope that 2022 is what we hope 2021 would be. And so I resolved to be very intentional in just being kind and compassionate in the present moment and self-aware, so that hopefully I'm spreading more good than harm in 2022.
You are, and we all love you and we all appreciate it. Representative, thank you for joining us. And that is the end. We appreciate you joining Vanguards of Democracy. Thank you.
Thank you. Peace.
Vanguards of Democracy is funded and produced by Vanguard Attorneys, a local personal injury law firm serving the Tampa Bay area with ingenuity and an indomitable work ethic. Don't forget to follow Vanguards of Democracy on YouTube or download episodes on your favorite podcast streaming services like iHeartRadio, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And lastly, we're excited to announce that we're launching our new landing page, www.vanguardsofdemocracy.com, where you'll be able to ask questions, recommend guests or topics, and stay up to date with news and announcements. It'll be great. If you know how to bookmark a website, this is the one that'll make it worth it. Thank you.